Hello, friends. Well, wanted to update you. We are all feeling, I would say, pretty good at this point. This hit me hardest, and the girls are, boy, if you saw them, you couldn't tell at all that they have been sick. They're still fatigued, so they're still a little bit tired. Rebecca seemed to come through it pretty quickly. And my fever just broke last night. I sweated everywhere and uh, then woke up and my fever was gone. So there is still, we're still having body aches and some other symptoms, but this has been pretty gentle with us so far, I would say. There was so much support from all of you. I just want to thank you so much for the love that you flooded in. That was incredibly encouraging and also just very useful, because when our system, our mind body system, is flooded with that kind of positivity, there's research that's showing that it's good for our immune system, for instance, as well as many other aspects of our well-being. I also wanted to thank people for all the recommendations of COVID, of supplements. So we went on to zinc, we went on to vitamin D3, despite the fact we tried to get out and get as much sun as we could, but it's pretty chilly. So we bared as much skin as we could bear when the sun was shining. As you can see today, it's not. So we went on zinc, the vitamin D3, quercetin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which somebody recommended, and some magnesium. And doing the research on these things, it was really interesting. There's, well, as we all know, money strongly affects how our world runs. And there has not been a ton of research on something like vitamin D3 supplements, or, oh yes, we took some vitamin C as well, or quercetin, or the zinc. So the zinc is one in particular where if you look at the studies that have been done, just correlative, so correlation-based studies, there seems to be a high correlation between low zinc levels and negative outcomes in COVID. However, there haven't been any big double-blind studies done. And this is because zinc is extremely inexpensive to make. There's no money in zinc supplements. So there's no money in vitamin D supplements, or at least very little compared to the money that you will get from making a vaccine. In our country, for instance, not only will there be the money after a vaccine is made, but the government has flooded all kinds of money into the initial attempts to produce a vaccine. So it was useful, I'll just say, from all of you to hear some of the research that you've done and some of your thoughts and what's worked for you. And anecdotal or not, true or not, we seem to have come through this, or at least are coming through this, very quickly and without any really negative symptoms. Now, I spoke to the support that all of you gave us, and I also wanted to share that our neighbors around us, our family, reached out in amazing, amazing ways. Now, in our first update video, I had said something like, we feel really lucky to be surrounded with so many people that we know will help us out if we need it. And Frederick, you in the comments corrected me, and it was a very apt and important, I think, correction, one that I can learn from. And basically what Frederick said is that it's not luck. We have put love and kindness out into the world, and that comes back to you. And that has been manifested in so many ways. I'm thinking of friends and family that have been reaching out to us here, and it's been kind of overwhelming. It shows the power of community. It reminds me of our good friend Brett, who's one of the 11-month forest monks from way back. And he would always say, people are the best investment. There's so much that we can invest our time, our energy in, and often we're not told that maybe investing in the people around us is one of the most powerful things we can do. You might not currently be surrounded by a bunch of people that would stop their lives in order to help you out, but you can be that person who steps out of your life to help other people out. And when you do that, you start something. You plant a seed that starts to grow into a sense of community with the people around you. Now, I know a lot of you are doing this really, really actively and are doing things like creating nature schools and growing gardens and sharing your food with other people, doing all sorts of things to create that feeling of unity, that feeling of connection. And that is needed more than ever. We have you look at the United States, and we have a leadership on both sides, Democrat and Republican, that often are pointing out the differences of the other side. And people buy into that, and they start to think of themselves in these separate categories. And the more we buy into that, the more we become divided as a people. And it doesn't take much thinking to recognize that as we become divided, we weaken and we become more vulnerable to a lot of things. And more importantly, we lose one of the most precious things, which is that sense of unity and that sense of connection. I envision a day when we see each other as not only fellow human beings on the planet, but as fellow beings on the planet, sharing this earth with these plants and these animals and all the creatures that we're surrounded with. That's going to take a rethinking, even a rethinking of how we think of things like viruses as not necessarily something completely evil, but something that has a place in our world. As long as we are so focused on me, I must continue on, I must continue to live, I must have the best for myself, then that focus, that pushes the rest of the world away. When we start to think with unity, we start to think of the connections that we share, then things change up. And oddly, as we're experiencing here, more goodness comes to the individual when you're thinking of unity. You see, we've been taught the opposite, that if I don't think of myself, then I'm going to have to sacrifice all kinds of stuff because everybody else around me is going to take. And it's a very limited way of thinking. It's a fear-based way of thinking. And I know that because I've fallen into that many, many times. And I've spent a fair amount of my life thinking in that way. And I know what it feels like inside of me, and I know what the opposite feels like. And over time, I've been able to see the fruits of living in a way that is thinking of me first, living in a way that says, you know what, I can just love those around me despite their differences. It doesn't matter what political sign they have in their front door. It doesn't matter what color their skin is. It doesn't matter what their religion is. I can love them the way they are. And when I do that, the goodness that comes back to us is amazing. So I want to encourage everybody out there to become the seed of that connection. To look around you today and find where you can reach out to somebody who could use a little hand. Give them some love, give them some help somebody rake their yard. Who knows what it might be? But I bet today you can find someplace where you can reach out to somebody in your family, somebody in your neighborhood, and show them some kindness that they're not expecting. It's amazing what happens. All right, my friends, love to you all. I will get my voice back soon. Part of this for me has been kind of a gunky throat. And so it sounds like I've got a cough, but it's not a shortness of breath cough. It's just some gunkiness. So I guess that's all I have for now. But I really, if Rebecca was right here next to me, she would be saying, I want to hear what you have experienced in the last months as far as people reaching out to you in unexpected ways. And we would love to hear you. It's not tooting your horn. It is actually inspiring others when you share where you have reached out to others. Don't be afraid to share the goodness that you're spreading. And I say that as I often suffer from that fear of sharing where we've put goodness out into the world and don't take credit for it. So I thank you for the reminder and encourage you to do the same. All right. Love you all so much and can't wait to talk with you in the comments.